Good evening and welcome to what date is it? February 24th, Ways and Means Committee meeting. It's the evening at 7 p.m. and we're going to begin the meeting at 7:01. The first item on the agenda, of course, is the call to order, which just happened. Approval of the January 27th, 2020 minutes. Is there a move for approval?
Motion.
Thank you, Joe. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bob. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Minutes
We
are
don't have-
approved.
We don't have to discuss the change. That's okay.
No, because you
All right.
made the change
My
beforehand.
first boo-boo, yeah.
No big deal. I actually copied it onto, Word and distributed it as.
Yeah, I don't have words, so thank you, yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jen, if you don't mind, I put you first on the agenda. I always think that's a good idea for our liaison. You indicated, and in fact, when it was passed around or distributed, that there had been changes to the volunteer handbook, and you're going to review that quickly with us. Stephanie, can you share that? Or Jen, do you want it to be shared, or are you just going to refer to it?
I could just refer to it. It's really pretty quick. The points that we wanted to talk about, I think we kind of touched on it at the last meeting. We were talking about how we can make our committees work more in concert with each other, how we can have like one unified way of bringing things to the township so that we don't have different projects that conflict with each other going on at the same time. So we just wanted to spread around the volunteer handbook to all of our volunteers and all of our committees, and just point out some of the ways that we think that we can keep committees from having these conflicts. Is on here. There is a area where it says that if a committee is going to use any township resources, that they should funnel it basically through the chair of the committee, and then that chair would contact Stephanie, the manager. That way everybody knows, Stephanie knows what's going on in the township. She could say, EAC is looking at that, maybe you need to talk to them, or maybe it's a bigger issue that the Board of Supervisors wants to tackle in a larger way, or maybe hire a consultant instead. So that's what we decided to bring to all of our committees and have that discussion with them about how we can better utilize our resources. And that's pretty much it.
Okay. That was easy.
Nothing big.
I had the handbook already to be shared and to be gone through. So thank you very much. Well, with that item off the agenda, I believe we want to turn to Ed. I'm trying to find you on the screen, and of course, Ken as well. And I do appreciate you, Ed, sending me an email. It's much easier than me, putting things on the agenda. So you're going to go over an update on the 2020 results, correct? Do you have
Yes,
something to share with us?
That's the plan. I shared a 2-page report. I guess it was yesterday it went out. Hopefully you all got it. It's the same report that you looked at last month with exactly the same format. So over on the right-hand side of that report are the forecasts that were done back in the September, October timeframe. And the stuff that's in the middle of the page is where we are at this point. And I think the last time we went over this report a month ago, we were still forecasting a number of lines that still needed to be finished up. At this point, if I remember correctly, we have 3 items that are left that are not yet closed, and quite a few items that are buried in the details that are in fact closed. Nevertheless, this report is not an awful lot different than the last one. On the operations side of things, we're about 21,000 better in revenue, and we're about 140,000 better in expense than we thought we would be a month ago. Most of that difference in the expense side comes from Ken having posted the year-end accruals for wages, which means that he has gone in and reversed the accrual that he did at the end of 2019 and put in the one for this year, which has moved us from a 27 payroll year to a 26. And so the effect of that is rather large. For more information on that, I would ask Ken to elaborate if you need it, but it's an accounting entry. Nothing has changed relative to exactly how much was spent. It's just in what period it's recognized. So that's the expense side. On the revenue side, things are the TV franchise fees, which I think I was still showing down a little bit last month, came in. They were a little higher. So at this point, we're about $5,500 higher in that item than we were back in September, which still means that Verizon is off, but not by quite as much. Earned income tax looks to be on pace to make it to our forecast and perhaps to exceed it. We have 765,000 still sitting in the forecast line, and we already have 736,000 of that sitting waiting to be moved, and we don't move it until the early part of March. So everything I can see in that area is that we will make our forecast, and in fact, we may in fact exceed it. When we were back in the fall in September, we were forecasting, without knowing what was going to happen in the fifth quarter, we were forecasting EIT to be off 3.5% during 2020. And we also forecasted to be off a further 2.5% in 21. This looks like it's going to end up somewhere around 2.7% off. So we've made some headway on that. And of course, there is still the question about what happens next year. I'm willing to guess that we probably have built a little bit of a cushion there. I mean, if we've done that much better this year, I would expect we were a bit too conservative for next year, but we don't really know yet. So that's the situation, is that on that line alone, there's probably a good somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000 that could flow in the positive direction here over this next 15-month period, this period and this year. So including the benefits from this year. You'll notice that even at this, if we make our forecast, we will be off 118,000 relative to budget. So we are still under and expect to be under what the budget had for 2020. But it may well be that next year, which is budgeted to be at, let's see, 4,155, may be a hair too conservative. So that's EIT. LST is also not moved yet. We have basically 133,000 to go on that line, and we've got more than enough that we've received year to date that would cover that. Not all of that is 2020 revenue, but a good bit of it is. So I also fully expect that we'll make that forecast. Other than that, the expense things are pretty much all the same as we've discussed before.
And just kind of focusing on EIT, you know, early on, there were lots of conversations through COVID that the reduction was expected to be I don't remember what the percentage was. I certainly could go back, but it seems like it was 8 or 9% was what we were expecting for a reduction for EIT. And it turned out to be about 2.7%, as you said.
We called it off 3.5% in the September forecast. But when we started out and compared it to things that had happened in 2008 and 2009, that effect had been far more severe. So
Right,
in
because
the early days, we pulled back and just waited to see what happened. But as we got closer and closer towards the end of the year, we moderated the forecast somewhat.
Another thing that we've never really discussed is delinquent EIT, and I don't know how big that is for.
And Ken can speak to that.
Because back in school district, that was a lot of money. And if we see a growth in that, which we might, but it'll take a while to get there. But anyway, Ken, what can you tell us about delinquent EIT?
The delinquent EIT for 2020, as of December 31st, Keystone collected $114,467. And you compare that to 2019, they collected $130,114. So there wasn't a large variance between the 2 years. And
Oh, did I hear you 140 versus 114, or were both of them 114? Sorry.
130,000 versus 114.
Okay,
It's about a $15,000 difference.
thank you. I need to turn up my speakers, I guess. Do they give you balances at the end of the year or versus collections? I was wondering if there was a change in the growth, if you had that.
Well, I ran a 1231 report for both years, and they just give me totals as far as what they collected.
Okay, all right. I don't want to make a big deal out of it, but actually that number is higher than what I thought it would be for EIT in the township. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, I think that's frankly good news for the township. I think this our main revenue source has proved to do far better than we feared in the beginning. And I guess now the real question mark is how fast does the economy come back? How does it come back? And will there be any dislocations during 21 because the whole pattern of business has changed? People working in the suburbs as opposed to working in the city or elsewhere, and none of that has come home to roost yet.
Well, it's starting, but yeah.
But I mean, it's not settled, and
No.
we can't see the effect of it yet.
And we have the real estate tax season coming up, as everyone knows. So we'll be keeping an eye on that as far as our receipts are concerned. But in 2020, the receipts were strong
Yeah, they were
for
much stronger.
taxes.
Well, that was to be anticipated, but I don't know that there's been much, it depends upon escrow payments and that type of thing. So there's a lot. I don't think you'll see much of a change in real estate, but we'll see. So anything about expenses that you wanted to go into?
I don't think that there's anything that's really worth going into. The biggest deal, of course, is the wage accrual, which I did mention. So, and other than that, I think we're on the positive side of where we were a month ago, and we're much closer to being wrapped up. Ken could give you some color on that, but he's working on adjustments at this point. So we're pretty far down the road.
Yeah, we're just doing some housekeeping and finance, and the auditors are going to be on site on March 11th. They've indicated that they would like to do practically all the audit virtually, and also the authorities audit is going to be coming up. So we're entering into a busier season, and I just have some, like I said, housekeeping entries to do, and it's mostly balance sheet housekeeping that I have to do. The biggest thing is to do the EIT and LST accrual back to 2020, and I expect to wrap that up in the first week in March.
Joe?
Can you explain the year-end salary accrual? Because in my mind, the accrual just represents the number of days that were earned, not paid. And I don't know how 27 pay periods versus 26 gets into the equation unless you're paying biweekly.
We are paying biweekly. For the 12/31/19 year, I had to move back 12 days. Because there was
Okay.
12 days that we paid in 2020 that I reclassed back into 2019 versus this year, Joe, I only had to do 4 days.
Okay, that explains it.
So-
Thank you.
Yep, okay.
I had a question going back on the EIT. Did you see or experience any uptick of people that worked in Philadelphia that gave up their Philadelphia tax and then worked at home? Did you see any additional reporting on that?
I did not, no.
It wasn't a
I am
big
aware-
thing.
Yes, I'm aware of that fact that people that worked in the city of Philadelphia or outside the jurisdiction of Doylestown Township moved their offices back to Doylestown Township and worked in Doylestown Township for a predominantly, amount of time. So theoretically, that EIT should be coming back to Doylestown Township. But
Right.
that remains to be seen because I'm sure the city of Philadelphia is going to have something to say about that. But
Well, they seem to be pushing it.
Yes.
So I just wonder if we experienced the other end of it.
Not yet.
no, I haven't seen anything, Mike, to be honest with you,
Okay.
as far as that is concerned.
As
Question.
Brenda knows, my husband's a CPA, worked in Philly, and ended up working at home for a lot of COVID. And I was like, hey, somewhere it says like after 90 days, the money should revert back to the local municipality. And he said he found some information that kind of countered that if the employer did not basically change their way of how they expected their employees to work. And if they're in the
withholding.
city, then they have it, and they stayed in the city and they were still, operating from the city, and they did not say, oh yeah, sure. I mean, they had it set up that you could, but they didn't really have it the other way. So, in most cases, if the businesses were still located there and still not setting it up correctly so that it would revert back to the suburban communities that have it, they still had the Philadelphia wage taken out.
Good point, because that's
Yeah.
exactly, the point is that if the company down in Philadelphia did not stop withholding at the Philadelphia rate, then when the person went to file, they're just going to have a credit like they normally would pre-COVID. But if the company started withholding, the 1% or the 1.75% or wherever they were located, then that EIT should be reverting back to the municipality. But
Right. What happens if they continue to hold the wage tax and then the individual claims that I shouldn't have paid that wage tax, City of Philadelphia, give me a refund because I'm going to pay Doylestown Township. That's what I have in my office.
okay.
I thought that there was some legislation that was being discussed or some way that, or I read about it through the PICPA, that employers were going to be able to take care of those refunds themselves.
It's either or, the employee
Okay.
or the
All right.
employer could do it.
All right.
Our company's leaving it up to the employees to report what they want to do. But sometimes an employer, if they close the building down, even though they're still domiciled in Philadelphia, they could have filed a form on behalf of all the employees. And I
Okay.
was wondering if there was any effect on Doylestown Township from
Doesn't
that.
sound like it. All
Doesn't
right.
sound like it. Okay, we'll move on.
Certainly not yet.
Okay.
Okay,
Anything else under 2020 results? Doesn't sound like it. I think we've on both sides. In your email, you said positive variance of what, 325,000, just to summarize again. Ed and capital projects was, what did you say? Pretty close to being.
pretty much being even, we're off on the revenue side, mainly because of grants that didn't come in, will come in during this year. So that revenue has been moved into 21. and the expenses are a little higher than we had in a month ago. But,
Okay.
but they're done. And that difference is almost entirely, we spent a little bit more in the Pebble Ridge, Woodridge area.
All right, then moving on to the next, second point that you indicated in your email
The
change.
second point, Stephanie, can you share the screen?
It's already set to share.
Okay, so let's see if I can make this work. All right. Can everybody see what looks like a police department report from the bad old days? It's a
Yes.
Ways and Means report. The first thing I'm going to say to you is that many of the numbers that are on this piece of paper are right. Some of them are not. This is put together more for format than anything else, so you can see what it is we have in mind. And if you look, this is the standard police report, the standard police items. We're not picking on the police because the same thing is true in every department. But if you look in this report on the third line down, there's something called direct fringes. And I don't know how many of you have been around on Ways and Means long enough that there used to be a line that was called fringes, which then disappeared. And it disappeared because the numbers that we put into that line were ones that we calculated during the budget process. And then on the basis of a distribution, this person sallies in this medical plan and has this kind of pension deal and so forth and so on. And it was a static model, which then was applied to the large bills that we got that were not broken down by person. And the same allocation happened all year long. And it was impossible to reconcile. So we moved the fringes at that point to this page, which you've seen before, except you've probably never seen it with all zeros in it before. So here's the collection of all the stuff that had come over from where we showed fringes. So let's go back to this. What we intend to do at this point, given all the time we've spent, and Joe Delicott and Joe Volk can talk about this a little bit later. We've done a lot of work to make sure we understand the total employee cost, including what we spend for fringes on a per employee basis. And given the magnitude of it, Ken and I have discussed how we could get ourselves back to showing the fringes within the departments the way we had intended to do it some years ago. And the point, frankly, is not on the report end, which is what I'm about to show you, but on the accounting end, where we will have some extra work to do to take some of these items, and instead of treating them as a lump for the whole organization, instead allocate them out among the departments. So there's a little plus sign over here on the left, which you hadn't seen before. And when I click on that, you will see that above the direct fringes line are those categories of spending, which have turned out to be the big deal in all of this. And to be perfectly frank with you, I only have two of the lines filled in. Medical and pension is like most of the story.
Right.
But if we throw in FICA and workers' comp, we've got a good 80% of the fringes covered. So we've been working on what we have to do with our systems and procedures to be able to allocate medical expenses, pension expenses, FICA on a per individual basis, or more importantly, on a per department basis, so that we can populate a report like this and see what the cost is per department. So here we have actually the real number for the uniform pension, but with a simulated number for what the spending on medical expenses was for 20. Only because we haven't done the accounting on an actual basis that way. We're coming up with a way to do it starting this year, so that by the time we get to the end of 21, we will have this system will be in place for the medical, pension, FICA, all of these categories. And if you go over here and look at the admin, I mean, this is the same page. Here you can see we've got some of these filled in. Again, in this particular case, the medicals for everybody. This isn't allocated at all. So let's pick a better example. If I went to Public Works, you can see there's nothing in there. But so I'm just really doing this to show you what the format would be. Now, when we come over to the summary page, this is where all the expenses come over. We made some other changes to carry out the theme that we've been on. If I click on the plus sign up here, you'll see that we can, even on the summary page, we can pick up the medical and pension, those two big ones, them being the biggest. I've left them on the summary page, but then summarized all the 4 lines that are beneath it in all other to give us a total. So that's, I haven't brought it all over just because you got the detail on a detail page, and this gives you perhaps enough to give you the basic flavor. The other changes we've made on this page, police is as before. Administration, we pulled in both what you're familiar with as the admin tab. We pulled in the parks management piece, meaning programs, and we pulled in the code department. So these are all the pieces that are really on the administrative side of the house. We've put all of the public works stuff under public works. So this includes roads, and it includes the public works part of the parks that does maintenance. And lastly, we've kept water here as we had before, except as with all the others, we've added the direct fringes line. So these 4 categories pretty well are the 4 big chunks of the organization and seem to be the appropriate ones for the summary page. And then when we get all down here to all departments, you'll see again a wages line, a direct fringes line. We still have the plus, so you can still blow it up if you want to. But then there's a line called other fringes, which means all of those categories of fringe that we didn't allocate, the ones that are small and kind of like not worth the accounting hassle to do, they will still all be out here on this tab, and they will all summarize and come to the sum page and be available on this one line. So we're right back where we were before, with everything from here on down being the same. So that's what we're proposing. That's what we're setting out to do. As I said, this end of it is the easy end of it. This is the report. We have a fair amount of work to do to organize the account codes and the processes to support this. But Ken and I had a long discussion on this today, and we think we've got the account code piece of it pretty much in order. We know how we can do that. And we've identified in those 5 big categories how we receive the invoices, how we pay the bills, and how we can put this process together in such a way that it is not, shall we say, human intensive to make the numbers, give the numbers some integrity. So we're looking over the next 2 months, I would say February and March. Hopefully by April, we can start operating this way. and keeping the numbers from this way forward. At least that's what we intend to do. There's a couple other small changes on the revenue side. This is a little perhaps harder to see. This line up here, which is real estate tax, used to say general fund, park and rec, and debt service. We've simply moved the debt service piece of it down here as a pass-through, which is really kind of what it is. It passes through and pays off the debt service, the loans on the other side. And we moved a line that was here that said real estate tax, roads and bridges, and moved that down here into the grants and capital revenue side, because this fund is used exclusively to pay for road projects, which are shown in the capital part of the spending side. So all we've done is to reorient the revenue to what we think are more appropriate categories. Comments?
Joe, I think, has one. I'm still absorbing. Joe, you're muted, Joe. Joe, thank you.
Okay, sorry. Ed, I see you have a tab called Parks, so I assume that you're still going to have the Parks detail, even though on the summary
Yes.
page, it's up in admin.
Yes, thank you very much. I didn't intend to change any of the detail pages other than to be sure that this breakout of Fringes was available. So yes, all of the same detail pages are still there with the addition of this collection over here.
And I have to agree with Ed that when we did the review of the fringe benefit breakdown, you've captured 90% of the nut in those large items, and the others just aren't worth worrying about. They're too small. So I agree with the breakdown.
Good, thank you.
And oftentimes
That's my opinion.
Oftentimes you can just figure out a percentage too to apply to dental and workers'
Yeah,
comp. I have a question. I think I know what it means, but what does post-health mean?
Ken, you want to answer that?
Yeah, it's a benefit that the township has set up for the employees that they take 1% of their gross wages and they send it off to Nationwide. And the township has set up a trust under the individual's name to use for future usage when they retire. And that's what that post-health insurance plan is.
It's
So they
relatively small on the non-uniform side of the house.
Yeah, but I'm sure the police is higher. But do I understand it as money set aside in trust to fund post-retirement healthcare costs?
Actually, that doesn't fall under that jurisdiction because, it is under the individual's account. Me being an employee of Doylestown Township, I receive quarterly statements from Nationwide showing the balance of the account. I have jurisdiction over how the account can be invested with different mutual funds that they have there at Nationwide. The only post-employment, other post-employment benefit that the township has is that a retired employee can stay on the medical plan. They have to pay for the premiums each and every month, but that's the only other post-employment benefit that the township has, that a retired employee can stay on the health plan.
Forever, or is it till they hit Medicare, or is there or is it COBRA?
It's until they hit Medicare. Until they hit Medicare.
Okay. age 65.
That's correct.
Okay, so is the post-health description, again, I don't want to make a big deal out of it. Post means post-employment. I understand, Ken, thank you for explaining that you, the individual, the employee, directs the investment of the funds going there, but is that money in that trust to be used to pay for healthcare?
Yes, it's
Okay.
for, well, it's a two-prong answer there, that on the non-uniform side, they can pay for insurance premiums. On the police side, they have a broader range of expenses that they can use the funds for, such as health insurance. They can pay for, I believe, doctor visits and prescriptions and things like that. They have a little bit broader range as far as how they can and what they can use their funds for.
Okay, sounds like medical though, primarily.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's medical. They can't use it for a holiday in the Key West. Or
You can use it for like durable medical goods. So if they needed wheelchairs or something like that, or
again, medical.
supplementing their Medicare insurance and stuff like that.
and Brenda, it's pretty buttoned down with Nationwide. You have to submit a form, you have to submit a receipt, and they can.
Oh, I'm sure it's like an FSA type of thing, I would
Mhm.
assume.
So Ways and Means would normally start seeing this report somewhere in the June, July timeframe when we start doing the full year forecast, but we wanted you guys to have some idea of what it was we were up to behind the scenes on these reports. And so as long as you think this is worthwhile, we believe seeing the fringes associated with the appropriate departments is probably worth doing. And I think we figured out how to do it in a way that doesn't break the back of the staff to actually make it happen.
I think it's essential to do it that way. It's great.
And Brenda, I just have one more thing. That post-health employment plan has a sunset provision for the non-uniform, because the 12ers, as I call them, do not receive that benefit. So, only essentially, eventually that the police department will be the only ones that will be receiving that benefit.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Ken, for that additional bit of information.
Okay, are there any other questions, or shall we move on?
Joe, do you have any questions or anything on that?
No,
I'm still learning, but I thought it was a good meeting and informative, and we have a lot of work to do, I guess, and keep it going, right?
Yeah. Joe?
yeah, I found the meeting we had back in early February was to the point. Ed and Ken did a very good job of explaining the benefits, and I think we have the nut covered.
Okay.
And I think, what they presented tonight, again, is good. We don't need a glorious detail for an account that is, $3,000 in a department. It's not worth, in the grand scheme of things, worrying about. So
Right.
I think this is a good compromise.
Anything else from the rest of the committee?
I have one comment, Brenda. I agree with you with using percentages for allocating like the smaller fringes. I think that might be a good idea to put in, because I know when I look at it, I like to look at the department as a whole. So if I'm looking at admin to see what the wages are and what the cost for compensation in total is, it would be nice to be able to have that little, like, have it be complete.
Let's put that. Let me put this in perspective. The total fringe line here for 2020 is about $3 million. If I was to take this and put all of the direct fringes that we're talking about together, and it was flowing down this page the way it will when it's finally done, I expect what I have left in the other fringes line is about maximum $250,000. So we're talking about something relatively small out of the total. And although I don't disagree with what you're saying, I'd rather do the whole thing. And frankly, I'm used to that from my past life. I think the bigger job for us is to tackle this direct part first. And then if we can find a simple way to allocate what's left, I'm all in favor of it. I just don't want to put the energy into the $250,000 part when I've got the 2.8 million one to do.
Okay, so what I'm,
To
just-
Ed's point, when we met and he gave us a breakdown, it was like $17,000 in life insurance. Vision was 5,000. Short-term disability was 20,000.
It's not a lot of money.
Not a lot of money. So,
And
Well, I think
we have to think of the staff who are going to do this and how they do it in a way that the numbers have integrity, we can believe them, and it doesn't totally negatively impact what they have to get done. So we're trying to take advantage of the systems we've got to do some of this. Some
We're
of
trying
it's
to do,
a
we're
matter
trying to
of
get
having
the,
the right account structure and setting the account codes right. Some of it is a little more than that.
we're just doing the low hanging fruit right now. We'll eventually get to that $250,000 as far as
okay.
how to
And-
allocate it out.
And that sounds great because the low hanging fruit that you're referring to is where all the money is. So I do have one questions on medical, just again, because of my background. And based on what you were describing, are you actually going to put in the medical pulled by each of the individuals?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah.
And the good news in that is that we receive invoices from the trust, which are broken down by individual each month. We also get it in an electronic format,
Okay,
and we can explore with them whether they can include a department number in it. And if they do, we can bring the thing in and very simply import it into our system. So we've got some cards up our sleeve on that one.
okay, all right. Thank you for sharing the cards up your sleeve a little bit too.
That'll cost you, but that's all right.
All right. Stephanie, I think it's probably early on to have any information regarding, and did I put that in there right? Gov HR, is that correct? Okay.
We had our initial call with them. Nancy was on there because of her HR background. She asked the chair to, participate a little closer. I mean, all the board members, of course, will receive the detailed stuff as we go along, but we had our initial call with GovHR yesterday. We had, from the time of approval, Jeff Garten had a little professional services agreement that he wanted them to sign and everything. So the back and forth, and then with the board meeting the following month for signatures. I mean, that just was the delay, but Nancy and I met with them yesterday. We had a Zoom call. I think we found it, at least I did, very informative. I think they're going to, we talked to them about what our needs were, what our expectations were, outlined from their proposal and everything. So, right now they're going to be in that data gathering. I mean, waiting on an email from them requesting, a ton of information for us to provide to them on job descriptions and, things like that they want, and salary information and all that. And then other information for them to build their comparisons with other municipalities. They'll also be looking, typically, we'll look in Bucks County, we'll look in Central Bucks when we're, determining salaries and things, but they're going to kind of take a bigger, broader brush and try to find municipalities perhaps across Pennsylvania that mirror us a little, better, if you will, not just those in Bucks and Montgomery. Will certainly share the salary survey information, but they want to compare more on, what's the comparison on the general funds, what's, things like that, size and population and budgets and things like that. So they want a bigger, broader brush. And we'll be gathering that information. So, I mean, they said it would probably be a 4 months plus, probably plus process. One of the things they want from the board at some point is our, what they call it, Nancy, the payroll philosophy.
Our payroll philosophy,
Mhm.
right? So, some, maybe like I'll use the example of an Apple, right? So maybe their target is to pay at 110% of what the going rate is. Others may say, the average rate is where we want to be, so, I don't know if past supervisors have sat and had this conversation. Jen may know more what the past history has been, but it'll be an interesting conversation. We also talked about just even our operations, talking about, Ed is your spreadsheets always blow me away, and I feel really incompetent after I look at them. So, but just so thank you. But just even like the way we operate and the way we work, and she has some really good questions that maybe the supervisors can look at, and even the way we automate things and how we work. I know there's a budgeting forecast project coming forward. So, and like I said, even just the broader picture of, some succession planning just to help Stephanie as well. And we also have some hiring issues with people that Stephanie is continuing trying to fill. So we really just want to be smart about it. So, it's really going to be a great tool, I think. And, and she's going to work to educate the staff as well, which is really important because it is an emotional topic. So we have to really be mindful of that and compassionate.
Yeah, I mean, the philosophy in the past to, when we've discussed salaries with board is that, quote unquote, we try to be at parity. That's the sort of big broad base, not percentages, nothing like that, but sort of parity. So, I always take myself, like if, we do high to low, we should be in the middle. If we have 20 people that are equivalent in a position, our hope is that salary falls in, quote, the middle. And that, I know that's been the past philosophy. I mean, maybe there's some other approaches, and I think that's something we'll learn in this process. But that's where we're at right now, Brenda.
Thank you. It's really early in the process then, and 4 months will be taking us into the summer. Any questions from the committee or anything? And thank you, Nancy, for your comments as well.
I'd like to know which wing of the castle does Nancy live in?
Oh, let's wait until we get to the end of the meeting before we
go ahead.
go off the topic, okay?
It's University of Pennsylvania. I like over here, actually. Yeah.
Not her house. No.
So keeping on topic and all, but I have to say that is distracting, Nancy. Anyway, Bob, how was your meeting with?
Well, we did a Zoom meeting with Ballard and King and representative from the architect. And it was pretty cut and dry. They asked the questions and I responded with the answers we agreed on. And that was the end of the meeting. It was yeah, it was pretty cut and dry. There is a meeting tomorrow night. It's a Zoom meeting that could have signed up for, probably can still sign up for, to discuss the rec center.
I got an email. I received an email about that and signed up today.
Good,
So
good.
the prior emails announced it, but there was no link to sign on. But the email I got today, I'm not sure who it was from, might have been from Brenda or Stephanie, I'm not sure. But you can sign up for the Zoom link for tomorrow night.
But please don't wait. The meeting starts at 7. Please don't wait to send an email at, 6:55. We're hoping people will, she's going to stay on and add people on. I mean, but it's going to be tough to admit people and then still get emails in. So hopefully everybody will be kind and, register early.
Stephanie, do we know how many people are signed up at this point?
There were about 25 as of yesterday, and we've had it out everywhere with the newspaper ads, I mean, we've pushed it out on social media. We've sent it to all of our boards and commissions. We may have gone up a little bit today, but it's been out there. We've had signs with the QR codes in the parks. We've had it Google grouped. We've had it Facebooked and all over social media. It's the front thing on the website when you open the website. It's on the slider.
Yeah, could we,
So, but like Karen says, happy people don't complain. And we had a nice article in both the Patch and I believe the Intel.
right, thank you. My question for you, it is a long Zoom meeting, it's 90 minutes. It's a pretty big commitment.
Mhm.
Would we have, sorry to question, but would we have maybe just a survey monkey for people maybe not be able to attend, but maybe we can still capture data and just do a survey monkey that if they, hey, you missed the meeting, if you still have input, fill out these questions. That way you might still be able to capture data if people can't commit that 90 minutes to the Zoom meeting.
I'll have to talk to the consultants and see if that's possible. I mean, I think part of it is there's a whole PowerPoint presentation that they're going to go through. And so just seeing the questions without having that background may, kind of skew information.
Can I ask one more question? Sorry. What's the difference between this meeting versus the one that Judy had last fall?
Can we take that offline so that,
Oh, all right,
so
sorry.
that doesn't take over the Ways and Means?
I apologize. I was just
meeting.
trying to figure that out. Sorry.
That's okay.
And as a matter of fact, I was reflecting on that earlier today too. I think it's going to be a very different approach, but
It is more focused on what goes in the building, not so much, having the building, what you might want to see, but taking it to that next level is really what it is.
Bob said that maybe a little more cut and dried
Yeah.
tomorrow night. I don't know. I'll have to wait and see, but I guess I'm surprised that the number of people is only 25. How many people on the committee have signed up? I think several of us.
No,
have.
there's other people that, I mean, there were 25 plus there's another, 15 or 20 that are township related people too. So
Okay.
by the time we're all done, I think we're probably going to have well over 50, 60 people.
Are the sports groups well represented?
They're having their own separate focus group meeting. They'll be, just like you had your meeting, there's a whole focus group just focused on athletics. Again,
But they could sign up at their members.
of course they could. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But there's a specific thing with people that partners groups, boards and committees that, have already been interviewed. The Board of Supervisors were individually interviewed. There's a whole focus group, meeting probably over an hour that will be focused on athletics. And then there's a whole, and all the ones that we work with and even ones we don't have been invited to that. And then there's community partner meetings taking place with community partners as well. Like, for example, CB Cares has been invited as a community organization. Some of our partners that are big sponsors and stuff. So again, I don't want to take away from your meeting, but that's sort of everything in the nutshell.
I think that's very helpful because we certainly, as a committee, have put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in on that. So I'm interested to know, and like the DA and the Warrington groups and some of those others will,
Hopefully they've been invited not
okay.
once, but twice, they keep getting the invites to be there and just sign up and, they need to
It
do
looks
that.
like Colleen's trying to say something, but I can't.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed it, Jen.
I think her sound's off.
Oh, you can't talk?
She's not on mute. She was.
No, you're not on mute. We can't hear you though.
No, it shows her being muted though.
Well, it goes back and forth.
Yeah. She must be having technical difficulty.
You're having technical difficulties.
Colleen, do you want to put something in a chat? You could try that. No.
Want to send a Morse code,
Sign language.
smoke signals?
Okay, all right. Thank you, Bob. I mean, that's, I was expecting it to be somewhat along that line, but I was hoping there might be a little more. Next on the agenda is Mike.
Mike.
You want to take it from here? You've
Sure.
had some conversation with, I believe,
You
Keith.
skipped me.
Oh,
I thought you told me. I thought you
5B,
did your report.
5B.
Yes, I know, but I thought you gave us your report.
Well,
Go
I'd
ahead.
like to,
I'm
I'd
sorry,
like to,
Mike, not
I'd
yet.
like to, I'd like to elucidate, as they say.
Okay.
Okay.
6B.
Um, real quick, we met with Ken, we met with Ed. Just raw numbers, okay? Salaries were in the actual and budget range between 5.1 million and 5.2 million. Fringe benefits make up 65% of that number, or 3.3 million, 2020 versus 2021. Putting my overhead hat on and putting in time paid, not worked, like vacations, sick time, holidays, etc., adds historically another 20% to that number. So depending on how you count, you can say that fringe benefits are 65% of salaries or 85% of hours worked. Enough said. Now, when we get to the DTMA question further in the agenda, the question will be if 5 people, for example, are 100% allocated to DTMA, then we have no problem. When we get to the people that are allocated, then I think there's a need for some review of that allocation percentage. It's my understanding that it hasn't been looked at in a number of years. Enough said. I'll turn it over to Mike.
yeah. Well, thank you for that segue. So I think last month we got an excellent presentation from Keith. And I asked him, because I was so impressed with the handout, to send us a copy of the handout, and I believe I distributed it to all you guys for this meeting. And one of the questions that came up is, what would be the goal, or what would be the point of this subcommittee for Ways and Means? And at least what I'm thinking is to learn more about Doylestown Township. I think there was a lot of questions that we had last week as Keith went through the presentation, and we had a lot of things we had questions on. So I think one of the initial goals of the subcommittee would be really to augment on the handout from Keith, and any questions or anything that the committee, Ways and Means, wants to know about it. But really, I want to try to develop a document of a plan of what we want to do and get all your guys' thoughts on that. So I went through and I did a couple of things. And let's give you a couple of examples. So DTA develops its own budget, and then who develops the budget, and is it the same procedures as the Doylestown Township budget, or is there something different about it? And as we go through it, and I don't know if we want to do it now, because I think we could probably go into a lot of detail. But what I'm asking you guys is, over the next few days, between now and next month, if you are reviewing the handout from the municipal authority, and you have any thoughts or anything that you want to look at, send me a note on that, and we'll try to incorporate that into our goals or our agenda for the subcommittee. And are there any other questions? I did have a good conversation with Keith. I guess it was last Friday, and I introduced myself as a little Ways and Means committee. He said he really wanted to wait to get some direction from the meeting on the 16th. And I did not get any feedback on that, because I think when we broke last thing, that we were going to wait, something was going to happen at that 16th meeting that may give direction to the subcommittee. And I haven't heard anything And maybe somebody could shed some light on that if there's anything to add to that or direction for the subcommittee.
Well, I think maybe on the 16th, the one bit of direction that we did have was to distribute the volunteer handbook and give guidance as far as allocating our resources for our staff and for those people that it needs to go through Brenda. And then Brenda would have to submit that the information to Stephanie as far as if we need to pull resources from our staff.
To answer questions for some things, right? Or
So,
provide
I mean,
some
that's
information.
the typical, I mean, even the Board of Supervisors, we typically funnel it one direction as well so that we all can work in concert.
Well, at least my thought on this is to go through this handout, see what we think is interesting or something we want to discuss or get some more information on, and then request that, and then present that to Ways and Means.
And some of it may be, for example, Keith referred to legislation or statutes that, you know, I didn't know existed. It might be, I occasionally enjoy reading boring, you know, that type of thing as an accountant, and to understand that. And maybe part of it is, you know, asking, you know, who does do the budget? Is it Ken Wallace? Just some basic questions. I mean, it sounds like already the allocation piece is at least being talked about and or has been looked at initially. And it's just a lot of money for Doylestown Township's budget. But just like pension and even all the work that was done on the community rec center, a lot of times it's just easier trying to do that with 3 people together, and then, you know, that group or one person asking questions of either Stephanie or in this case Keith, and to minimize the time.
I
Thoughts?
think at all the time we need to keep in mind that, you know, the DTMA is their own legal entity too. And so it's not, their budget is not our budget. It's a separate budget as a legal entity. I would just
understand
keep
that.
that in mind.
I protest,
Yeah.
okay? They may be a separate legal entity and you can have as many legal entities as you want, but the ultimate responsibility for the DTMA is the township. And that's, I've read that numerous times. So you can say they're a legal entity, but in my humble opinion, they should go through the same rigors that the township budget process goes through. Okay.
That would be their board to determine
Determine
that.
yeah.
But we can ask what they currently do, and you know, along before we get to what they should be doing.
And I think the downside of having 2 people doing a separate budget, even though they're related, they could have different goals and objectives. And we could work very hard on Ways and Means, trying to get the budget for a new rec center and this and that. And Doylestown Township Municipal Authority could have a different, completely agenda, which could conflict with ours. So that's why we want to try to get everybody working together. And I think that's one of the goals of what I have here is if Doylestown Township could have one vision, not a separate municipal authority vision that's separate than from the township.
Well, because we're separate entities, we may just have that. We may just have that. I understand that we have a lot, we do have a connection, but as far as we don't direct their budget. We don't direct, we just recognize it when it comes in, and that's pretty much it.
But you're responsible for
Then I
it.
would
No,
suggest
she's
you
not.
read.
Supervisors are
She's
responsible.
not
for
respond,
that.
no,
Sure.
those
Appointed.
supervisors are not responsible for the DTMA
Who
budget. The
appoints the-
DTMA is responsible for the
who
DTMA
appoints-
budget.
Who appoints the people on the DTMA?
That's the Board of Supervisors.
So ultimately, they're responsible. I
Well,
think
Or the
that's-
appointment of the people on there. Once the people are on there, they're on their own legal entity. These are kind of legal questions and, you know,
I don't agree with that, but that's all right.
No, neither do
well,
I.
I mean,
Nor do I.
All right, well,
They're-
we
Well, you know
they're
what
don't
we
want to
can
get,
do?
we
We
don't want to
can-
get back into that. I wanted to keep it high level.
Yes.
Review the
Arlene's-
document. If you have any other questions on that, email it to me. We'll try to get a plan for the next couple months on this subcommittee. And that's kind of- I think
Arlene's
there's a lot of stuff.
posting
The
comments
reason it
on
was so heated, the
chat.
discussion is because we don't know.
Thank you,
what's
Joe.
happening.
Yeah, Colleen has some, she can't.
Oh, and
communicate.
now we could hear you, Colleen, I think, or was that Jennifer? No,
That was Jen.
it was Jen. I'm sorry.
I can read her comments out
Yeah,
loud.
Yeah. Either you or I can, feel free.
No,
Everybody can look at the chat.
Yeah, everybody can look at the chat and see her comments.
Yeah, and thank you. That's, and you're right, the solicitor, but I think if we get the statute too, but in the financial statements, that footnote in there, as a CPA, it does, you know, ring.
Well, there's a reason they put the footnote in there, so there's something. And
Yeah.
one of the questions I'll ultimately have is, do they do a test on an annual basis, or do they review that annually to see the dependence from the municipal authority on the township?
Yeah. But we're just getting started.
We're just getting started. That's why I would like, at least for this meeting, get your questions, send it to us, and then get a plan. And then probably next month, we'll get at least an idea of what we want to do, and probably have a.
And you know, one of the things last month, we didn't even really let, well, in my opinion, we didn't let Keith do all the talking that he may have wanted to do, because some of us were jumping in with questions.
He mentioned something about that, so.
So, and not that I want to have him come out to a lot of night meetings, but we may need to have him come back, or he may want to help bring us all up to
Yes,
date.
absolutely.
Yes, Joe.
This
Joe
may-
D.
This is unrelated, but part of it. I received a article about Warrington customers getting PFAS payback, millions of dollars for contamination. I know that the township had some wells or a well shut down for PFAS. And I'm wondering if the township or DTMA has pursued any grants related to that.
Well, last month, Keith, well, he told us there were $530,000 worth of grants. I don't remember, then there were two, but Joe, I don't remember. I mean, one was for painting, I believe.
560, yeah.
Well, for Warrington, they received a grant, includes a $3.3 million and $800,000 PAH 20 grant through the Department of Community and Economic Development. They also received $3.34 million grant through Horsham Military Installation Remediation and Infrastructure Authority in December. So I guess the question is, has DTMA or the township applied for any grants related to PFAS?
I believe they've been looking into them, but they are not part of that Horsham base. That is not where the contaminant came from in the well that they were impacted with.
Okay.
So they're not entitled to those types of funds because it's
One of them
not
sounded very,
related to that.
what sounded very specific to
Yes,
the
yes.
Naval Air Station. I wasn't so
Yeah.
sure about the other one. I read the article too.
Yeah, we all did. Mhm. Yeah, but they're looking on grants and pursuing it, and they're working with DEP, cooperating with them regarding the Cross Keys situation. And, DEP is still monitoring and working to, I guess, find work with the company that possibly caused the contamination.
Well, that's very close to my house, I think is what you're talking about. Penn Engineering.
It could be there.
Yeah.
I think it's in Buckingham or Plumstead,
Plumstead.
but they're pursuing all those. Mhm.
Mike, did we give you enough?
Yes, I'm good. So if everybody has my email address, use it next week to solicit some thoughts or stuff that you want to have direction for the subcommittee.
Okay. Colleen gives a thumbs up. We're gonna have to get you your technology worked out here. Okay, moving on to capital projects, which I expect to be a relatively brief report. Dave
Yes,
and Stephanie, whoever's giving it this month.
yes, capital projects. Yes, we're working on them. I mean, yeah, we're moving things forward, working with the engineers, working on the paving program, the curb program, and all the other, capital projects that we have in the budget. So we're, moving things along.
Yeah, but
Yes.
when are those bids going to be ready to go out?
Well, there's certain schools of thought on some of those is wait a little bit longer to get more work done over at over in Pebble Ridge, Woodridge, or put them out right away. So the guys are working on them, the engineers are working on them, probably within the next month, but we're still debating that a little bit.
Well, then they have to be out on the street. So we're looking at May or so before awarding them, huh?
Oh, yeah. No, we're probably gonna be, May, June. We're probably gonna be paving in the summer. We're not gonna be in spring because, it's really, we're also waiting for Bucks County Water and Sewer to get more work done too. And they're kind of held up with the weather.
Well,
I'm hoping it's gonna stop snowing.
Right.
I don't know when
Not
that'll
March
happen.
yet, yeah.
Exactly. Our biggest storms come in March. Thank you, Joe.
Sorry.
Well, there's some other roads to be done this summer, not just the Pebble Ridge and Woodridge, right?
That darn groundhog, right?
Yeah. Yep. But that's what we're concentrating on those right now. That's kind of our main concentration is that to get that done first.
Yeah, and since somebody brought up the snow, how are we, Ken, Ed, or whoever with?
Spending lots of money. We're spending a lot of contractor, salary, overtime, and salt. A lot of money. We're probably upwards.
I like numbers, not just a lot of money. I mean, we used 10% of the budget already, 50% of the budget. Because, Joe.
Sounds like the controller auditor, right?
And Joe and Stephanie both made the point too. We had the last few times, well, March can be difficult too. I just was curious where we are. I think we've stepped through the agenda. Is there other business? Anyone?
Yeah, I had one thing that I wanted to bring up, and Ken can maybe talk on it a little bit if necessary, but I was talking with Ken, I think it was this week or late last week, about our Moody's rating that we received notice of on the last Board of Supervisors meeting. And part of the rating, you guys probably know this a lot better than I do. So part of the rating relates to our fund balance, having a healthy fund balance, and having low debt. And looking at the budget, the way, I know, Ed, you're saying we're always really conservative and not to worry about the big, downward slope with the fund balances, but I am a little concerned that it'll affect our Moody's rating. And I don't know, I'm sure plenty of you here have a lot of experience with that. But I think Ken's going to be looking into that for me.
I'm
Yes, I
sorry,
am.
Jen, I didn't hear what you started out to say initially. I apologize.
So I was saying the Moody's rating was given to us at our last Board of Supervisors meeting.
Oh, when
And
did
one
the
of my
surveillance, when did that happen?
Pardon?
When did the surveillance review happen?
I'll have to have Ken address.
I mean, this is something I've been asking about almost every month, is when this was going to occur. When did it happen?
The report came out last week, and I forwarded that off to the supervisors. I can forward it to the Ways and Means Committee, and it basically is, it talks about our fund balance, the overall health of the township, and what our rating is. So, like I said, I'll forward that out to the Ways and Means Committee.
Didn't they
More
call
money.
you and want to talk with anybody at the township?
No,
You're kidding.
nope. Nope. And also, you have to realize too that Doylestown Township is an open book, because every time we have an audit, I send the financial statements out to all the rating agencies.
Yeah, everybody does that though, Ken.
Right, yeah. But going back to Jen's question about fund balance and debt ratios, I reached out to our financial advisors at PFM concerning those type of questions. What thresholds would we fall under as far as would there be too much debt and too little fund balance? And I haven't heard back from them yet.
And you can ask those questions directly of Moody's.
Moody's.
If they sent you the rating, you ask Moody's those questions and they can give you pretty specific information.
Okay, Bob. Oh, well, that's good idea. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's
I
really
mean,
helpful, yeah.
they will definitely give you the information, and it's okay to question them, most assuredly.
So when we're doing our budget, if we, I mean, I don't know much about Moody's ratings, so I'm sure you guys can let me know the import of maintaining a good rating. But want to keep that in mind when we're looking at our budgets.
I think we always do. I mean, it's certainly for those of us who've worked in government, that's always on the mind. So,
And I think you'll be surprised your fund balance percentage is way over where it needs to be. So
yeah.
but you can get those numbers right out on Moody's. They have a guide.
Okay, all right.
And well, it's not that current anymore, but I used to have information from both Standard & Poor's and Moody's that, as Bob says, it's a guide and you know, how they rate and anyway. But thank you for bringing that up because I didn't know that it had come out yet. I get a drop once a week from Moody's regarding ratings and surveillance that they've looked at, but I haven't looked at it.
What was the rating?
We got a AA1.
Okay.
And that's what we've been carrying for past 3 years,
Yeah.
4 years now.
Ever since you did the big conversation with Wall Street, there was improvement in the rating.
And we have 22 coming up.
Yes.
It's going to be an important year.
Anything else?
Madam Chair.
Colleen
if I
has a
may.
chat in there.
I'm sorry.
Colleen had
Oh, I'm sorry.
provided a chat. Rating was withheld. I don't think they did new surveillance. Upheld, not withheld. They
Oh,
don't-
okay. But I know they don't always do the interviews, Colleen, but usually every other year or so, one of them, either Standard & Poor's or Moody's. So anyway, okay.
Like I said, I'll send it out to everybody and you'll see the report.
Great. Thank you.
No problem.
Madam Chair, I just had one comment on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Doylestown Township Municipal Authority. We request that any and all subcommittee information or things that your subcommittee is looking for, that you go through our Board of Directors and not through Keith Haas directly. Mr. Haas has a lot on his plate with regards to his daily responsibilities. So the Board of Directors has asked that all of the communications and requests come through ourselves.
We can certainly do that. Can you give us a timeline or approximate when you would respond, Joe?
I can't give you that because I don't know what you're looking for. So it would be based on what it is that you come to the board and ask of the board for information on.
And wouldn't it be okay to go ahead and ask Keith and just make sure that everybody's copied?
Actually, I'm going to reiterate that we've talked with Keith, and on behalf of myself and the chairman, we're asking that all information go through the Board of Directors, not directly through Keith Haas.
Again, who's on the DTM board? I know you are, and Mr. Stone.
Right, if you go on the website, there's a full listing of all the members. I'll be more than happy to email you a listing of
No, you don't need to do
the
that.
members.
I'm on your website. So we need to address all of our requests to 8 different people.
No, you can direct it, you can direct it to the Board of Directors of DTMA. You can send it to myself as Vice Chairman, or you could also send it to the chairman.
Who is the chairman?
Dick Bach.
We'll send it to the chairman.
That'll be fine. And then we meet the third Thursday of every month.
Okay, is that a better place to get information?
Well, our meetings are always open.
Well, of course they are.
You're always welcome to attend the meetings.
Who's the solicitor for DTMA?
I can send you that information also. I
Just-
would also encourage you to, we thought that, I believe I thought your last meeting that I was encouraged that yourself or somebody from Ways and Means approached the Board of Supervisors just for some guidance as to what information they would be interested in hearing from Ways and Means regarding DTMA.
That was the meeting that was the 16th they referred us to.
Yes,
That's why I initially said, what was the result of that meeting?
Right,
yes.
but there was nobody there from Ways and Means at that 16th meeting. Colleen, you were there, but you didn't make there was no interaction from your part with the Board of Supervisors.
No. The direction of that was that the supervisors wanted to discuss it and give Ways and Means direction, not the other way around.
And we also have a report Ed was talking about earlier prior to the meeting officially beginning. A report that's going to be circulated too, as I believe, I don't know if does DTMA have to do a report to the board at all? And,
We always do a report each year.
okay. And you've done that already?
Yes.
Okay, but they haven't been circulated yet.
No.
So I hear what you are saying. And I'm just curious, wouldn't it just be easier to tell me who the solicitor is for DTMA?
Yeah, I just want to I'll put it in writing and give you all the contact information so you have it.
Isn't
Okay?
isn't it on your website?
I don't know if the solicitor is listed on the website. Okay.
Pardon me?
On the township's website. Under boards and commissions, it's on there.
Okay,
They
thanks.
have
Okay,
their
well,
own page
we
too.
look
They
forward
have,
to,
they have their own pages to
Yeah.
link to.
Yeah, I
Thank
mean,
you for your
I've
time
been on
and-
the
Rich
DTMA
McGee.
website before.
Yeah. Rich
Well, like I said,
McGee
thank
is
you for your time and we look forward to receiving any of your inquiries.
And
Have a good night.
I look forward to a timely response to our inquiries as well. Thanks.
Whatever you're entitled to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But I think the board of directors, when it comes to getting guidance, giving guidance, one of the things that I had asked last meeting was, what types of things are you going to be looking for? And it sounds like Michael is going to create a document of what you really are interested in. So at that point, that would be something that I think would be appropriate for the board of supervisors to look at and say, is this a direction that we think we can go? And also legally, can we delve into that? So that's, I think, where the direction's going.
We're not going to look at anything that's not legal that wouldn't be required to give to us under a right to know request. I mean, let's,
I'm sure.
you know.
Yeah, I think, Jen, what we're trying to do is not do 100 right to know requests.
You know, we just want to know some
It's
basic.
public information.
Yeah.
I understand, but if there is a simpler way to do it or a way that we
Right.
can coordinate a little bit easier, it would be a better solution.
Oh,
than for-
absolutely. Right to know requests take up way too much time. And, you know, I don't know who the right
Nobody
to know
wants
officer is, but that's not an efficient use of anyone's time.
Right,
So.
right. So as
I-
individuals, if you want to do right to know requests, obviously that's the way you can go about it. But as a committee, for the Doylestown Township, I think that's something that we would like to know, that that's where you're headed.
Well, one of the things that, you know, it was very clear in the handbook, it isn't supposed to be just one person's request or that type of thing, which is the way right to know goes. But you can certainly share the information publicly and at a meeting.
Sure.
And so that's what we're, you know, that's why we're trying to get things together to come up with. And right now, everything is pretty general. Looking at the statutes, we've not asked for anything that's
Right.
privileged at all.
Yeah,
Well,
I
the only,
think
the
what
only
we're-
information I have at this point is a couple of years financial statements.
Yeah, and
So
That's
that's
public.
a starting point.
Yeah, that's public, so that's fine.
That's public.
and you know, the nice PowerPoint. So I don't really know why we're meeting so much resistance. I find this to be kind of interesting,
Right.
but
Yeah.
I don't know that we have anything else tonight that we need to discuss or do. Tomorrow night, it sounds like a number of us will be also volunteering and giving our time to listening and being part of a 90-minute Zoom. And I appreciate that for everybody here that's here. Is there anything else for the good of the order tonight? Any comments or questions? Is there a motion to adjourn before 8:30?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn.
Who did that?
Joe,
Joe and
I'll
Bob.
second.
I'm sorry.
Okay, all right. Eric?
You can
I thought we
fight
were
it.
going to see Eric.
Good
first.
night.
All right. Good
Thank
night.
you very
St. Patrick's
much.
Day.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.